We're basically stripping all the nutrients out of the earth. We're spilling all this toxic waste into our home environments and into the external environments, and we're basically killing the planet. And we have to start getting a social conscience about what we're doing.
Mankind has witnessed a tremendous change in its environment over the last 150 years, in fact ever since the Industrial Revolution. And a kind of corporate arrogance, a kind of cultural arrogance prevails, whereby all problems can be solved with man's endeavour. And so this has relegated natural processes somewhat to the use of drugs, chemicals, and of course in agriculture, pesticides, herbicides, larvicides, and these types of things. And the effect it's had on our bodies has been tremendous.
Not just the personal level, but what we're doing to the society and to the world as a whole by our behaviour. Now, there are people, for example, who dispute whether climate change actually occurs. I don't care whether it occurs or not. What I do care about is the sort of muck we're putting into the environment, both within the home and outside the home, that's causing all these sort of problems and all these health issues.
It's those chemicals, it's that stress of life, it's those environmental contaminants and pollutants outside. Just for example, air pollution, water contaminants, all of those literally mean that our body is constantly being bombarded. We are leading such an artificial life, and it's quite funny because people often say, oh, but this is normal. No, it's not. What is normal is actually the hunter, fisher, gatherer.
We were basically living a pretty simple life, top of the food chain stuff. We'd wake up in the morning, pick up the spear, go and kill the food, and if the food wasn't there, you went hungry.
No, our bodies are literally 5 million years old. Sometimes it feels like that when you wake up in the morning, but they're 5 million. Our digestive system, all of these things, our muscles, we were designed to be leading a life of the hunter-fisher-gatherer.
And the only stress we had was the acute stress of the kill. And there were no synthetic chemicals.
Fast forward 5 million years, and here we are, living inside in a contaminated environment with poor air quality, low quality food, an abundance of food, over-processed food, and as a result we have an increasing rate of chronic illness.
So we weren't designed for the synthetic chemicals, we weren't designed for the radiation, we certainly weren't designed for a constant feast. We're hungry, we eat. I have patients who come and see me and say, but doctor, I get hungry by about 10:30. I tell them to get over it. So you're hungry, big deal. That's not a big deal. The big deal is the fact you should be living to your physiology. And one thing we certainly weren't designed for was this inactivity and the chronic stresses we're all putting up with.
No, we're supposed to be eating the fruits, the nuts, the berries. We're supposed to be eating the vegetables, the beans. We're supposed to be eating fish and an incredibly small amount of meat. We're supposed to be, leading an active lifestyle, physically active lifestyle. And in fact, we're supposed to be leading quite a relaxed mental lifestyle. And all of that has been twisted so much that this lifestyle is literally killing us.
The immune system today is having to deal with tens of thousands of completely alien chemicals to the biological experience of the human organism. And what that means over a period of time is that we can become immune deficient, especially if we have the two-edged sword of the diet, or a poor diet, lack of hydration, lack of exercise, and stress cutting in at the same time.
And unless we actually start to really analyse what we're doing with all these synthetic chemicals and radiation, allowing children to sit in front of computers and TVs all day and keeping them indoors, not exposing them to the natural world and natural environment, we're going to really cause problems for future generations.
I would suggest that up to 95% of the chronic illnesses that we're suffering from ADHD to Alzheimer's, heart attack to stroke and cancer to arthritis and all those other diseases, are linked with our diet and lifestyle of the 21st century.
I think it's important to recognise the fact that 1 in every 2 men get cancer in their lifetimes, and 1 in every 3 women get cancer in their lifetimes, and that we are facing a major and unparalleled cancer epidemic. These figures represent a major escalation in the incidence of cancer over the last 4 decades, and at the rate in which we're going, I think I can reasonably estimate that while we're having 1 in 2 men getting cancer now in their lifetimes, it'll become an almost universal problem in which 1 in every man will get cancer in their lifetime unless we come to grips with this question of reducing avoidable exposures to carcinogens in the totality of our environment.
In my practice, I have seen a lot of toxicity issues, a lot of sensitivity, allergy issues. We have people who are sensitive because the total load of all these sensitizing chemicals is too much for them to bear.
One of the reasons allergies are going through the roof is that when I was a kid growing up, we used to play outside in the dirt. My old grandfather, who was a Queenslander, so he used to speak very slowly, he was the only person I know who could say "ras" in about 3 syllables. And what he used to say to me is, "Ras, if a child hasn't swallowed a bucket of dirt by the age of 5, it's not a healthy child." And he was physiologically sound because there is a bacteria in dirt that actually blocks the allergic response. Now, what are we doing these days? We're keeping kids out of the playgrounds, off the streets, because we're worried about a whole lot of issues like traffic and stranger danger and all that sort of business, but they're not getting exposed to the natural environment. So they're inside in this sterile environment, and the rates of allergies are going through the roof. Food allergies have doubled in the last 10 years, peanut allergies, allergies to wheat, allergies to a whole lot of things. And I believe a lot of the reasons for that is we're not living in a natural environment.
We're using chemicals that have simply not been tested over time to see what their effects would be, say, on the blood work, the reproductive system, the endocrine system, and these problems are now being identified as disease, and then a drug is being given to that person to correct the symptom, but no way is that correcting the underlying disease process, or indeed the causative process, which could be chemical.
45% of people living in the modern world can expect to die of some form of cardiovascular disease. The rates of cancer are increasing above 30% now. They used to be around 25, they're going up to 30, 35%. They're increasing all the time, and I think one of the reasons for that is the excessive exposure to these ubiquitous synthetic chemicals, both within our homes and outdoors as well, and also the increasing exposure to radiation. And it's just everywhere in many of the products we use within our home.
We now have, I believe, a household health crisis, whereby we've seen over the last 10, 15 years a dramatic rise in a number of health complaints. We've seen asthma, and we know there's a link between the chemicals, that the number of chemicals in the home and asthma rates. We've seen a rise in chemical sensitivity and lots of these other conditions that may have been caused by the chemicals either directly or even indirectly.